Welcome to Gigmasters, your channel for tips on how to get more gigs and keep them. Today's episode is the tip jar. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the tip jar, one of the most important pieces of equipment on your live music gig. What you're looking at now is an open guitar case sitting on the ground with a thank you note in it. And that's okay if you're outdoors busking or in the subway, but let's talk about a real tip jar. This first example isn't a tip jar at all. It's actually an old beat-up champagne bucket. It's good for beer halls and burger joints, but you would never want to bring something like this on an upscale venue gig. And for heaven's sakes, don't write tips on the tip jar. See that $1 bill? A lot of guys will hang a $1 bill over something like this. Guess what? All you're going to get is a bunch of $1 bills. Use the power of the laws of attraction and seed your tip jar with at least a $10 bill. Now, use something clear so the patrons can see through it. You know, something like a jar. Now, you don't have to write tip jar on the tip jar. I mean, it's a clear jar with money in it. People get it, trust me. Now, make sure it's about 2 feet in the air. That way it's not too low and people trip over it, or it's not too high so that they can't see you performing. You piano players, just put your tip jar on top of the piano. Now, I'll use a black tablecloth over a guitar stool, a 2-foot gig stool. I carry the stool with me in the gig rig on the rare occasion that I get a sit-down gig. Now, here's a good example of an acceptable tip jar for an upscale venue. Now, let's take a look at an example of what not to do. Come on, guys. These are horrible tip jars. I mean, they're okay if it's the counter of a coffee shop, but don't use them at an upscale venue. Now, come with me and let me show you what I do on a typical solo at an upscale venue. That's my little performance area right there. You see my tip jar? Actually, it's not mine. It's the venue's tip jar. All of the entertainers that perform here use the same tip jar. Now, I've got to cut this short because the crowd is about to start filtering in. I'll tell you what, let's take a look after my 2-hour 4 to 6 and see how much is in the tip jar. Trust me, guys, by using a clear tip jar, I'm going to maximize my potential for tips today. So, let's get those tips and let's get those gigs. Oh yeah, look at that. Now that's a tip jar. Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Gigmasters, how to get and keep more gigs. If you found this tip helpful, please subscribe, comment below, and check out the other videos on this channel. I'm your host, Mooney Man. Now, let's get those gigs.